$30 billion. That's how much of your money is in North Carolina's annual state budget, which is coming together pretty quickly down at the State House. Welcome to the Daily Download. I'm Travis Fain, and today's deep dive conversation is all about that state budget, which will move this week through the North Carolina House of Representatives. I'm joined by Will Doran. We work together on WRAL's state government team. And Will, we're going to get nuts today.
I'm looking forward to it.
We're going to talk about policy. We're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about policy.
A lot of policy in this budget. Yeah.
We'll get to that in a moment.
Let's get into it.
But we'll talk a little bit about what's in the budget, teacher raises, state employee raises, et cetera. But we'll start by laying out here kind of the stakes, which are always high in a budget battle, but are particularly high this year because of a fight over Medicaid expansion.
Yes. This is just, a huge part of the budget this year. And a lot of Republicans were mad at the Republican legislature for expanding Medicaid. They said, this is something, Democratic Governor Roy Cooper has been pushing for. Why are our Republican lawmakers doing this? Well, a couple of reasons. One, the state gets $1.8 billion from the feds for doing this. And two, the legislature now gets to just really twist Cooper's arm with this budget because they tied Medicaid to the budget. And I mean, it's just, it's going to be a race to, I think, just figure out how much they can, force Cooper to agree to.
Yeah, it's this huge expansion of this government program, taxpayer-funded health insurance for hundreds of thousands of people, billions of dollars a year. And we've been fighting over it for a decade. Republicans have been blocking it. And now the Republicans have said, no, we're going to do that. But it doesn't take effect. We've already passed the bill, but it doesn't take effect until we also pass a budget. So we're writing a budget that has all sorts of interesting little things on it. There are no new limits on abortion in this bill, but there is some somewhat controversial abortion language in this budget, right, Will?
Yeah, it bans the state from, if it's ever doing like a teen pregnancy initiative, from working with groups like Planned Parenthood to make that happen. It also gives the state very little money for teen pregnancy prevention, but where it spends a ton more money is on crisis pregnancy centers, which are like usually Christian charitable groups that operate and basically, and work with women who come in a crisis, who are pregnant, like the name suggests. And often they kind of maybe make themselves seem like a place that you could get an abortion, but then when you actually walk in the doors, there's a hard sell on, do not have an abortion. You can do this. We're going to help you out. And so, it's very popular among the right, very, unpopular on the left, and there's many millions of dollars for these groups in the budget.
Yeah, and again, the idea is let's put what we want in the budget, and Democrats will have to go along with it. The governor will have to go along with it because Medicaid expansion, it's got this trigger. There's a bunch of education policy in the budget, including new caps on class sizes in 4th and 5th grades at 24 students. That's not controversial. That the Democrats and teachers are applauding that, but it's in there. There's also a new way for parents to push to remove books that they don't like from classrooms. That is a little controversial. And new requirements to post classroom materials teachers would have to for parents to review. We're going to get into that and what else is in the budget on education. But first, we're going to take a little break. All right, welcome back to the Daily Download. I'm here with my colleague, Will Doran. We cover state government for WRAL, and we're talking about the state budget. So I mentioned briefly the education policy, Will. Tell us a little bit about what's in there. And in fact, let's start with teacher raises. What are teacher raises looking like in this proposed, not done yet, proposed budget?
Yeah, so we have a proposal from the House for an average 10.2% raise for teachers over 2 years. This wouldn't be each year. This would be combined over the 2 years of the budget. And I think it's fair to say that what we're waiting for from the Senate, because the Senate hasn't gotten their own chance to take a look at this, but in the past they've been kind of less fans of raises and more fans of bonuses, which can be, a little bit more targeted for performance. So, we could see some situation where, maybe it ends up with smaller overall raises for teachers, but with bonuses for high-performing teachers, something like that. But that's, we're just getting speculative at this point. But 10.2%, and it would be, especially for teachers in rural counties, would be getting more money than teachers in the urban counties.
Yeah, to try to make up for the fact that property taxes, counties use property taxes to supplement what the state pays teachers. So a teacher in Wake County, where there's a higher property tax base and more people, is typically going to get more money than someone in a rural county. So that's the state trying to step in there. State employees also getting raises. I think it's 7.5% over those same 2 years. You mentioned the Senate. I think one of the things we can expect as the Senate does this is to have the teacher number and the state employee number be closer to each other, not the same. But that is kind of the read we're getting from Senate Republicans. And I should mention, we at the outset here said this is a $30 billion budget. That's the 1 year figure. The 2 year figure that we were talking about is for the raises. We do these budgets 2 years at a time, but we redo them in the second year. State government's awesome, it's so complicated. No tax increases in this budget. In fact, there's a small acceleration, Will, in already planned personal income tax cuts. It's just moves the rate down a little bit sooner than it had been planned to go down.
Correct. Both the personal income tax and the corporate income tax in last year's budget got kind of set on this schedule over the next few years to gradually decrease. And the corporate income tax isn't getting sped up, at least per the House's version. Democrats obviously wanted that to stop, and they said, let's just keep it where it's at. That'll give us another $1 billion a year. Obviously, that was never going to happen. But the personal income tax is going to only minorly
it'll be just a little bit less.
I don't think people will really notice that much of a change. 1 year when it was it's currently 4.99% is our income tax rate. 1 year when it was going to drop down to 4.6%, it's going to instead now drop to 4.5%.
And the North Carolina economy has been going pretty gangbusters, which leads to the state revenue system bringing in more money than expected. Like, we're just consistently bringing in billions more than we expect. We're like the number one state for business nationally, according to CNBC, all of which Republicans point to and say, it's because we cut all these taxes. People love it here. I will note, though, that the corporate income tax rate, which would go down to 0 by 2030, that's lower than even the North Carolina Chamber of Commerce has pushed for. They say we're competitive now at 2.5%. Let's run through a couple of other things. Cap and trade, Will. Tell us a little bit about what cap and trade is and how come the House budget says we can't do it.
So this is basically what some environmentalists view as a key policy in stopping climate change. And it would basically, have big polluters, cap their emissions, or if they exceed that cap, trade it off, and essentially pay other greener companies for being green.
Yeah, it's like you get a little certificate that says, I helped someone plant X trees, therefore I get to produce Y carbon. You see it in energy sectors, power plants and whatnot. In some states,
exactly,
have come together on this.
And you will almost certainly not be seeing it in North Carolina anytime soon, because the budget says that is illegal. The governor can't do it, and even the State Utilities Commission, which regulates Duke Energy and all of our other utilities, would also be banned from issuing any sort of cap and trade rule in the future.
And that's something Governor Roy Cooper's administration had been moving towards. It takes a while, but that's something he wanted to do that he wouldn't be able to do now. There's also language in there trying to undo, or that would undo, an executive order the governor issued that is trying to pressure vehicle manufacturers to make more heavy-duty trucks that are electrified, zero-emission vehicles, as it were. That's in the budget, too. Tell us, they're tinkering with the Supreme Court in this budget, yes? Changing the retirement age. We have a mandatory retirement age of 76 now?
72.
72.
But about to be 76 if this budget proposal passes. And that is mostly aimed at one thing, which is not making Supreme Court Chief Justice Paul Newby retire early. He would normally hit the retirement age towards the end of his current term, but this would allow him to not have to step down partway through that term. It would also affect a few other judges. John Tyson on the Court of Appeals would normally have to step down during his current term unless this goes through. A big effect of this is, Republicans currently have a 5-2 majority on the Supreme Court, they've got a huge majority on the 15-person Court of Appeals. And if judges are forced to leave the bench, whether because they're retiring or for whatever reason, the governor gets to appoint their replacement. And if a Democrat were to win the governor's race in 2024, then that Democratic governor could appoint a new Supreme Court Chief Justice. And so this budget says, yeah, we're not going to have that happen.
Right. So it's about letting Newby finish out his term. It's about keeping a Republican in that seat, a seat that Newby won in a by-election,
Right.
because we do elect Supreme Court justices in this state. All of this was in a story that ran Sunday on WRAL.com, and a bunch more is in that story, too. Both of us can attest. If you search WRAL and budget, all kinds of coverage will come right up because we're covering this almost every day. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Will, for your time. Folks, if you like state politics like we've been talking about here, I've got another podcast for you to try. It's called The Wrap at NC Capitol. Every week, Will and I, or one of our colleagues, breaks down the week that was in North Carolina politics, primarily talking about state government. You can find that wherever you get your podcast. Search The Wrap at NC Capitol. Thanks for listening. Have a wonderful day.